I can't fathom what a study in contrast this was, because Sunday afternoon, Germany, who for those who don't follow basketball, were kind of a gigantic Teutonic basketball joke for many years in Europe. They go and they win. They become world champions in basketball in the Men's World Cup. They beat the U.S. along the way, among other people. And yes, the U.S. didn't have possibly their strongest team, but it's still the freaking U.S. and the NBA, and the country's 4 times as big as Germany. So it's an incredible achievement. And I can't help but wonder whether, like, are we seeing, like, the rise of German basketball, the decline of German football? Are they going to be better in basketball than they are in football at some point? They probably won't, but still, it's something fun to think about, at least for me. Because obviously, when it comes to football, Germany's a team I always root against, even when they're playing England.
You hate them, Gab, didn't you?
I don't hate them. It's a strong... No, but you root against them because they're really freaking good and they're the gold standard. More than anybody in Europe.
Can't you just enjoy their success and enjoy them being brilliant?
No, that would be
Why do you
weird.
want to knock them?
What?
Because they were good.
But so when you had the whole David Goliath thing, like you were supporting Goliath, right?
I never
worked out for you, didn't it?
I never got all these snooker haters on Steve Davis or the dart haters on Eric Bristow when they were top. Enjoy them that they're top.
When you watched Rocky IV, you were all aboard with Ivan Drago, right?
No, I weren't.
Yes, you were.
No, I weren't.
Yeah,
No.
You were an Apollo fan, not a Rocky fan.
I'm all over Rocky.
Clearly. All right. We've added him. Don, you had a question for Archie.
Yeah, Archie, when I look at this group of players and I look at the management structure in Hansi Flick, is he really inept at getting a spark out of the players? Because this is a really, really good crop of players to work with.
Is it?
Well, I think so, isn't it?
Let's let Archie answer.
It doesn't compare to the previous crop. There are people who are not on the same level as your Philipp Lahms, your Bastian Schweinsteigers, your magic that Mesut Ozil could conjure and did conjure in a Germany shirt. And I think there has been a drop-off from that. But at the same time, is there enough to form a cohesive unit? Absolutely. Watching the All or Nothing documentary that was released this weekend to coincide with this international break, you can't doubt that the level of analysis is there. The amount of detail that they go into, but I think the bigger picture decisions that are being taken that were the problem here. And was somebody like Joshua Kimmich, was he prepared to go and play right back and play it in a way that is defensively responsible, shall we say? I think that's one of the things that this team needed. I think of the Germany team winning in 2014, the World Cup, and I look at what somebody like Benedikt Höwedes did, somebody who doesn't have anywhere near the same technical quality as a Joshua Kimmich, but he played every single minute of that campaign at left back. And I think that what you see at international level, and what also makes the best clubs tick, is that people come in and do jobs for you when it is needed, and I think that there was not enough sacrifice made in that sense.
Okay, on this specific point, I'm sorry. I am Team Kimmich all the way. I appreciate what Benedikt Höwedes did. You know, you're a defensive midfielder, you're a center back, and you play left back out of need. We've seen it happen during tournaments. We're not in a tournament. We're in a friendly. And you're building towards something. And for me, Joshua Kimmich is, we can have a debate, Wirtz maybe one day, but right now, Joshua Kimmich, if he's not Germany's best player, he's the second or third best. He's definitely in the top 3.
I just think the spark's gone. I think the
Okay,
spark's
you can talk
gone.
about spark. I'm going to talk about positions, right? Why would you possibly think...
positions are irrelevant if you haven't got it in you to produce.
Okay, Joshua Kimmich has it in him to produce.
We know this.
He's a central midfielder. He plays central... I'm not into labels, right? If the tournament comes around and somebody gets injured and the guy's got to play it right back, then he'll play right back. But he is your best player. Normal people go and they put their best players into the positions where they can do the most damage, right? And to the opposition. And that's Joshua Kimmich's position in midfield. Also because guess what? Ilkay Gundogan's not getting any younger, is he? Right?
But my question is, why is this Germany team getting rolled over so easy?
No, that's right. Let's let Archie answer here on this point.
He didn't... Look, Kimmich played in central midfield during the World Cup. That's the point there. And he's also not in form, and he's not been for a while. And Kimmich even prophesized his own downfall after the World Cup, saying, "I'm afraid of falling into a hole." And I've been at Bayern a lot of times since the World Cup. People groan when he's going to take a corner. Like, there is not a good mood around him, and he's struggling. And I don't think that Kimmich and Gundogan as a double pivot works.
So the way to revitalize him is to play him in a different position at right back that he hasn't played regularly in years. This is the other thing. If the guys...
No, I think that he can play right back better than any current option that Germany have. That's the fact of it. And he needs to have somebody who sits behind him. That's been the conclusion of Thomas Tuchel. That's why Bayern tried to get in João Palhinha at the end of the window. I think that Gundogan is in better form than him and deserves his place in the side ahead of him.
That is a double pivot though. That looks slow to me in Kimmich and Gundogan. That looks a slow double pivot. That tells
play them
me
together.
Pardon?
I wouldn't play Kimmich and
No,
Gundogan together.
me neither. It's too slow. You could run off the back of them two very easily. Unbelievably good players. But we've seen now possession is not king anymore.
I want to talk about other issues that they have further up the pitch. And we touched upon this off air, and regular readers will know that all this stuff about creating players, pathways, and people taking, and we always see this all the time. National team does well, and there's always like the youth team guys who come out of the woodwork and take credit for it. Like we saw with Belgium's golden generation, we saw it with Iceland even. Like, oh look, they invested in this. Yeah, obviously you need to have infrastructure and so on. But if you're talking about the highest level, and Germany is or should be at the highest level, there's an element of randomness. It's nature, not nurture, I think, that creates great players. Because if it were, post the reboot and everything, when we're all praising Germany for producing a ton of great players and they're doing so well, did it not occur to somebody they might have produced at least one striker, the best post-reboot strikers that they produced, correct me if I'm wrong here, Archie, are what? Kevin Folland and Nicholas Füllkrug, right? This is the gold.
Kevin Behrens right now.
Yeah, I mean, all right, exactly, right?
But right.
So you can do everything right, and Germany produced a ton of super talented wingers and attacking midfielders, and people could play with the ball, but they couldn't do that. And they have an issue there, and they obviously still have a big issue at fullback as well. So his solution in this game was to play, was just to move Kimmich from midfield and move Schlotterbeck, who, by the way, hasn't had a great start to the season at Borussia Dortmund, to left back. Archie, am I wrong here? Do people not understand this randomness of superstardom?
What do you mean by the randomness of the superstardom? The fact that over times there's just going to be times when you have generations that come through that aren't
or just individuals. They've been looking for a striker for what, 10 years, right? Miro Klose kept playing until he was 53 years old, I believe, right? Right. They got Lucas Podolski, who was.
Do you mean like randomness, as in like one day they'll produce 6 number 9s at the minute they've got none? Do you mean that's how random it is?
Yes, you can't plan on it. You can't say somebody's youth development is rubbish because they don't produce at that highest level. You can produce a large volume of serviceable players, which I think Germany's done largely, but you can't do that.
So to that point, I think that particularly living in Germany and seeing how people talk about things, I think that one thing they maybe suffer from is the wealth of intelligence that they have. And they sometimes overthink everything to think that there is an answer and a solution to everything. And particularly when it comes to trying to find this next number 9, I think that they were probably congratulating themselves a little bit too much after what happened in 2010, 2014, and thought that this was all a result of everything they were doing, as opposed to thinking about it as you're saying in the randomness context of it, which, if you look through generations, is also part of it. Naturally, they were doing things that helped it, but there are certain things in life that you just can't predict. There's certain events that have effects on human beings where it produces a reaction. The fact that, could it have been predicted that Bayern would suffer in the way they did in 2012? That pain and the drive that I think also helped give Germany that motivation and incredible belief and drive that they had, both with the Bayern sector of players in 2013, but then in 2014, that played a huge impact. So there's so many different factors that I'm with you, I would say, about thinking about it as well. Everything can't be planned for here.
No, and that's why I don't have a problem with him, for example, playing Kai Havertz up front. There's no...
Sometimes it's necessity, isn't it?
Yeah, we could debate whether he's a genuine center forward. Maybe he hasn't found his position yet. Yeah. But the guy's tall, he's strong, he works hard. Wasn't great against Japan, I thought, at all, but then he wasn't the only one. On to this. You've taken issue with how chaotic... Again, we think about Germany, we think about these stupid stereotypes of order and so on. In reality, and it's funny because we often have Jan on talking about and he talks about how Bayern is constantly a zoo, especially in recent years with, people plotting against each other. It's like some Machiavellian thing. But because for many of us in the West, we have this image of Germans as ordered and rational all the time, we can't understand how freaking irrational Bayern have been over the last couple of years, although my friend Ralph Honigstein likes to say it's because of the northernmost Italian city, Munich is. But anyway, on this point, can you just describe a little bit, because they made the announcement while everybody was celebrating Germany becoming world champions in basketball, and there's a bunch of other things. Can you just run us through those?
Mate, anyone who has taken a train regularly in Germany will particularly back at you about things being organized here, let alone punctual. It's been chaotic to say the least. You look at the fact that Aki Watzke, the CEO of Borussia Dortmund, but also the vice president of the DFB, was mocking the new reforms that Hannes Wolf, who was recently appointed as the director for youth football training and development, had come forward with to try and change and help the way that youth football is run, and saying that, well, what's next? Are they going to suggest that we play with a square ball? That didn't look good. You have Kai Havertz moaning about the fact that, nobody really supported us back home and all the other countries had their fans going for them. And it's like, Kai, you're not reading the room here, nor are you listening to what anyone is saying back home. You have that announcement, as you mentioned, with the basketball. You have the team and their preparations after a behind closed doors game being leaked to a national newspaper here, probably with the thinking maybe that, if people see that we are trying to do stuff differently, they'll soften their stance. And it's like, well, you've basically just given Japan your game plan once again. And yeah, I could go on. This is all just within the last week. And the DFB is just a continual clown car when it comes to its public relations and the way it is viewed and seen as being so out of touch with the fans. Even letting Hansi Flick take that training session on Sunday morning. Put him out of his misery instead of just having him mournfully stand about in front of a couple of thousand of fans as well. Like, God, how he must have felt.
Don, that's pretty crappy. You've decided to sack the guy.
Yeah.
And you make him go and take the...
No idea what the thinking is there. I've got no idea. You can't even say we're in a conversation with someone else. Can you take the training session? As Archie said, you would just have the conversation in the morning. You would just do the right thing, do the honourable thing. You wouldn't let him stand there and take a training session in front of thousands, as Archie said there, knowing that you've been sacked or getting the sack.
I feel like last time they scapegoated Oliver Bierhoff. Now there's no Bierhoff to sack because obviously you can't sack Rudy Fuller for this, right? Because he's only just got there. So I find this really remarkable. I'm almost wondering whether maybe we should reevaluate Bierhoff a little bit in light of what we know now about how these people operate. You're making a face. No, you disagree?
Yeah.
Du bist kein Beerofista?
Not especially.
All right.
I think that too much was probably read into the success of 2014. Like in Germany, there's always been this big thing about how smart it was for Germany to go and base themselves away from everybody else in Campo Bahia, it was called in Brazil, and how amazing their training center was there. And I just think that one of Bierhoff's key jobs in that position, you have to protect the team and make sure that they are not. You're basically, I'd say, like a boxing promoter. You're trying to manage the situation as best as possible. I think that's one of, in terms of rhetoric, and the fact that the players were still having to think about what gesture they were going to do the night before the tournament began with this whole One Love armband thing, which, like the players say, was super annoying. And I think that's something that's why your officials and your higher ups are there to do just that.
But wasn't the decision for the One Love, wasn't that, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
would assume how to handle that. That was taken above Beerof's head, right? I'm assuming that was the FA.
It was, but the fact that the players felt under pressure that, well, we need to still send some sort of statement out here. When the fact is, we know how World Cups work. After the first game is played, everyone's talking about the football. And they still had that playing on their mind. So I think that Beerhof's management of that wasn't good. The fact that they went and trained somewhere which was out in the middle of nowhere, away from anyone in Qatar, particularly because of the dynamic when it came to the whole press conference situation and how Germany ended up looking aloof because they wouldn't send a player with Hansi Flick to the second game. And you're the only country that does that? Why? Well, just be closer then to everything else. So I don't think that these decisions went down well. And the way that Oliver Bierhoff is viewed by many Germans is as just being this PR guy. And that is a massive problem for the German team right now, is connecting back to the fans, because they had a huge connection with them when you think back to 2006, even 2010. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine who does not like football at all, to the point that she went to Wembley Stadium over the summer and didn't realize it was a football stadium, okay? But she loved this national team. Like, when she sees Bastian Schweinsteiger, she's like, oh, Schweini, yeah, oh, Podolski, fantastic. But I asked her, okay, but can you name any of the current teams? She was like, no, I've just lost interest in it. And that's the thing. Germany needs to get those people back on side in time for next summer, because a home Euros is huge. But there is just this, I think, complete gap when it comes to authenticity and identification.
Okay, can you just make it clear for the record, Oliver Bierhoff, not just a PR guy. He is tall, he is handsome, he is wealthy. He scored a winning goal in the Euros, okay? Which is more than any of the three of us have done.
Sure.
Although, Don, you probably came closest.
Not really.
Don.
Well, Archie, I want to ask, and this is probably the impossible question, but so where did Germany go from here? Not in terms of the runners and riders for the national job, but who's this now on to produce young players? Because as you said, the Euros are going to come around pretty quick. So where are Germany going to be potentially in 12 months' time if they're not bringing bright young players through to make the national side better?
I think there has been a reduction in terms of the amount of young players who are German and playing in the Bundesliga. I think that that's a result of the Premier League squeeze, I would say, and the need to keep themselves financially profitable, and what it is to, I think, get the money in if you're a club like Mainz or Stuttgart from various clubs. So I think that has an impact on it. But it's not something that's solvable over 12 months, nor to allude to what we were talking about earlier.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking whoever the new manager might be, if he's still got the crop of players to work with, the same crop of players, and I think from the outside looking like the spark's gone, how did Germany get going again?
Well, that's where I want to transition to, because obviously there's long-term fixes. You don't have time for long-term fix. You're going to have to bring in a new manager. The name I've seen mentioned, I don't know if it's just us in the media saying like, ooh, who's the highest profile German manager who's unemployed? Julian Nagelsmann. Let's link him to the job. I really like Julian Nagelsmann. I'm on the record for saying how horrendously and how stupid it was when Bayern sacked him and the way they did and when they did and for the reasons that they gave.
That doesn't feel like a good fit to me.
He does not feel like a good fit to me, because I would imagine Nagelsmann somebody who needs to kind of work daily with the players to really have that experience. You'd probably also, since he's still under contract with Bayern, you might need to chuck some money at them. This whole optics of Flick replacing Nagelsmann might be nice if they showed some kind of imagination and didn't just go with the same gang of people over again. And that includes Jurgen Klopp. I'm sure he'd be fantastic, but let's leave him where he is for now. Can you help me here? Can you come up? Has somebody mentioned somebody more realistic or better?
Oliver Glasner was another name.
Oh, great football there. That's wonderful. Yeah, let's go in the opposite. Well, why don't they get that guy from Wolfsburg? What was his name? Hecking or whatever? Like, why don't they get him?
Dieter Hecking.
Yeah. That's progressive.
He's too busy at Nuremberg. No, that was a name which was mentioned at the end of the commentary of the Germany-Japan game, for example. But let's also not forget that I don't think Jurgen Klinsmann was an obvious choice when he came in to do the job for the 2006 World Cup, nor was Joachim Löw either. So I'm with you on the be imaginative, but I think it's harder to be imaginative when you're under such pressure and there's such desperation. And the dream person for it would be Jurgen Klopp. But is he going to come right now? Would he agree to do it just for the tournament? That would probably optically be the best thing that they could do, to give him the job just for the tournament even. But it's difficult to come up with somebody who is, say, at a point in their career where they have enough of a reputation to warrant that job, but also be comfortable with working not on a day-to-day basis and doing the things that being a national team coach demands. And as you say, Julian Nagelsmann doesn't really fit that mold, but would it appeal being the national team coach for a home Euros?
It feels
100%.
like an experience thing to me, Gab.
It's 10 million. It's 10 million for him to be out of his contract at Bayern. And something says to me that after the way that the DFB got Flick from Bayern, that Bayern would be like, oh, you'd like him? Okay, well, pay up then, and we're all good.
Yeah,
it feels like an experience thing to me. I feel as though if Nagelsmann went in for the World Cup, it could go disastrously wrong.
The Euros.
It could go really wrong to an embarrassing stage. Not because he's a bad manager, it's because they're asking a young manager to deal with the mess that's going on over a long period of time and work with experienced players to try and deliver a home win, which is a lot of pressure. That could be a bit of a laughingstock for Germany. And I don't mean on the manager. I just mean the whole thing that's going on. It's not the right time for him.
Yeah,
it's experience is what I think they need.
You want experience? You want somebody who everybody thinks...
Can
I answer the question for you?
Well, yeah, but I think... Yeah.
Give you the experience? There is somebody out there who is experienced, who everybody in Germany, maybe even everybody in the world outside of Manchester United fans think is some kind of... And Cristiano Ronaldo thinks is some kind of genius. And he's old. And maybe you could bring him in just to manage something. Would that be... Ralph Rangnick's reputation outside of the sceptered isle is still as somebody who knows what he's doing, right? And I know he's got another gig now, but, it's certainly cheaper to get him out of it than it is to get Nagelsmann out. Would that be insane?
Would be.
Yeah.
It would be. I don't think he would at this stage with what's going on at Austria, and also because of the battles that he would have to fight at the DFB with people like Rudi Völler, with Hans-Joachim Watzke. They've said that they are looking for more of a long-term answer to the problem as well. Also, I think that element I mentioned about how it connects with people and getting people on side. Sure, look, the best way to get people on side is results. But also, since the rise of Jurgen Klopp, and I'd say in this era that we're in now, charisma and how you come across is important. I think that is something that Ralph Rangnick, to a home audience, it's not something that he's massively seen as empathetic. It's partly because he wasn't recently at a very traditional club. The fact that he made the monster, as many fans see it here, that is RB Leipzig. I don't think that endears him to people very much either. So
get the Freiburg guy then. Right, all the German lefties love it, right? Streich, right? Run around, lots of energy. They can do that, yeah. All right, Archie, we're gonna have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.